Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, Christopher.
Hello.
does it
Good
does it
evening.
does it annoy you? I'm so formal with your name, but just like the way it rolls off my tongue when I say Christopher. I
Yes,
just
rather. Feels like I'm in trouble when you say Christopher. Only like my
you want me
mother
to
and
call
my
you?
sister and my wife call me full name Christopher, my government name when I'm in
Yeah.
trouble.
Well, you're
Christopher
not in
Maute.
trouble. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Shall I just call you Maudie for the rest of the night? I could do that for you. I want you to be comfortable. You
Oh
know.
yeah, just call me Maute. It's easier to
I'll
say.
call you about it. Okay. But when I
Mhm.
say Christopher, it just emotes all the things that I think about with you, like the intelligent conversations, the Sunday chats, the food, the jersey, the music. Like
It's it is all that.
it is all
It is all
that.
that.
So when I say it, just know you're not in trouble. It's like,
I get you.
it,
I don't feel like I'm in trouble. Don't worry. I didn't do
that's
anything
good.
wrong today. I'm feeling good about it.
Not today. It was a good Saturday then. There you go. It was a good Saturday.
Today's
So
weather was amazing. How are you still in Jersey? How was the weather out by you?
I am still in Jersey. I'm a little bit inland from the shore. I'm in Central now. I'm over near the Freehold Borough. I'm in the
Yeah.
center of the county.
Yeah.
And it was 75 today.
Yeah.
And for the first time in my life, we had a fire warning on the weather thing telling us that fires could sweep through the areas. And I'm surrounded by woods. I'm in
Wow.
a residential area, but I'm surrounded by woods and orchards everywhere. And I was unsettled. I've never in your lifetime. Well, you're also by the shore, but you were in another county. Like you grew up a county south of me, right? Like you're more
I'm in
more
Ocean
south,
County.
right? So you're
I grew up
just
in
a
Ocean
county
County.
below me, right? And
Yeah.
did you get a fire warning? I couldn't
I don't
believe
ever
it.
remember getting a fire warning.
No,
I don't
I
ever
don't
remember getting one.
recall. I don't ever recall having one in my whole life. That it was just weird. And I'm like, it's the times, right? Like
No,
every
because
day I wake
global
up.
warming is a joke. So I mean, it's just
Mhm.
it's just a
There we go.
coincidence.
We'll set the tone. Like you wake up every morning and I'm like, I can't believe that happened. But of course that happened overnight. Of course it did. Like what
Of
else?
course. Of
Yeah, of
course, we're
course.
having more hurricanes during hurricane season. Of course, temperature
Of course.
extremes are more extreme, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not
But then
global warming. You can't even
that's
say
right.
that anymore. It's climate change.
It's yes, it is because the globe, and I don't I'm actually like that better because when you say global warming, even though that's the scientific fact, then they come back at you, with the it's still snowing. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, that's my favorite.
Yeah.
Hey, it's nighttime in
Coldest.
Lancaster, therefore there's global darkening.
Exactly. Jeez. Okay. So
Stupid, right?
yeah. So let's get well. First of all, I've been promoting all these. So for those in the chat, they may know like we definitely want to talk about the videos that you've been doing in this whole project you've got going on in honor of your mentor, a professor from right here in New Jersey, William
Yes.
Tucker, who unfortunately is no longer with us, but his works are here. And why don't you tell us how you decided to get on this project and how he has inspired you? So, like, if you don't want to get too dated, you can go all the way back to when you first
Oh,
met him. Because
I'm happy to talk about it. So this is a fun story, right? This is like a true boy meets mentor, and then gets to fulfill his a passion project of making my mentor's work come to life. So
Mhm,
in 1994, well, let's see, I'm 53 years old. So when
mhm,
after I went to music school, I went to Rutgers Camden to pursue psychology.
mhm,
And while I was there, one of my professors at Rutgers Camden was William H. Tucker. And I took a course with him called Intelligence, where he taught about intelligence and the history of it. And one of the textbooks was one of his books, which was one of the best parts about being a professor back in the days. You could make a book and then make it be the textbook for the course that you
mhm.
teach.
They
But
actually let you
this
do that. Yes.
So this is the actual textbook that I learned out of in
Mhm,
1994. This is the same book that I used as a textbook in 1994 in Dr. Tucker's intelligence class. And he not only covered the history of intelligence, but its flawed premises over history. Stephen Jay Gould's book, The Mismeasure of Man, was also
mhm,
one of the textbooks. And it was all about the self correcting nature of science, in that it is psychologists, or it took psychologists to note the problems with the psychological literature, right?
What
So it
makes
was
it?
people outside of the field pointing to how bad it was, although eventually it was. Event Ultimately, what happened is psychologists, scientists found out what was wrong with the previous research of other scientists, psychologists.
Mhm.
From my perspective, the history of intelligence is the story of the self-correcting nature of science.
Right.
But let's
So,
put that aside. Let's
no,
put
no.
that aside.
Let me just clarify that. William Tucker is a psychologist, and that is part of
Yes,
his study. And he was predominant in using psychometry, exactly the science in measurement of these things to try to disprove some of the stuff that you're talking about here, to try to bring it into concept. Like that's what he was basically known for. So, concentrating on psychological statistics, the measurements, how they work or don't work, right? The
very well
methodology.
put. So
Okay.
William Tucker's history is after I believe he fought in the Vietnam War, and after he came back, he used his, I believe, the GI Bill money and
Mhm.
started going to school, and he got a fellowship for. He was going to Princeton, and he got a fellowship for psychometrics, and I forget the exact name of the award, but it had to do with like the people who make all the psychometric tests, not just intelligence tests, but achievement tests, and like the SATs and the ACTs and all of that. So he is trained in all of that. So, and he's also trained in the history of psychology. So when
Mm,
he approaches the history of intelligence, he has he has a complete understanding of not only the history, but also the statistics involved
mhm.
and just everything about it. There's no nook or cranny that he doesn't have a complete. He's like the Noam Chomsky of the history of psychology, right? Because in my opinion,
Exactly.
Noam Chomsky has an almost complete understanding of world history.
He
So
incredible historian, if you all don't know. I just dropped the wiki on William Tucker, and then for information purposes, I'm also going to drop the psychometrics wiki too. For people
perfect,
that some people in my chat will actually want to know more than what we're going to say. So I
good,
don't want to
good,
distract you.
no worries. So while I was a student at Rutgers in the fall of 1994, I was taking Bill Tucker's intelligence course, and it just so happened that at that in during that semester, a book called The Bell Curve was published. Now, The
Uh,
Bell Curve is a very controversial book that kind of lays out why that there are race differences in IQ test scores. They try to make it a point that IQ is inherent. Therefore, the racial differences in IQ are inherent and therefore genetic, which is a way of saying that races are genetically different, such that Asians are
mhm,
on top, whites are below them, and people of color are below white people. And there's also a policy issue in here that talks about because um, people with low IQ are genetically predisposed to have low IQ, any environmental social effort to improve that, like compensatory education or Head Start, is a
mhm,
failed effort and a waste of money. All right. So
mhm.
those are controversial claims to come out of a book. Look at this. This is a thick book filled with statistics, none of which is peer reviewed. Let me put that
It-
differently. In
no,
the
no,
world of
like
science, yeah, in
no
the
peer
world of
review.
science, when your main product, the gold standard of you being a scientist and your merit is publishing in peer reviewed journals, hopefully that have very high integrity scores, right? Like
Mhm,
Nature
mhm,
Neuroscience, like all of these those are wonderful publications to have an article in. Now, this book, instead of having its findings go through the process of peer review, they just embargoed a book. Do you know what the
mhm.
worst part and the best part of writing a science book is? You don't have to go through peer review. So all of these ideas circumvented the necessary firewall of science known as peer
Right. No,
review
no
to just be
testing,
published.
No proving of the facts, no
Nope.
testing. I mean, and that's important thing to state because that is one of the main reasons this book is so controversial because they're still using it to this day to try to prove stuff. And it's just there's nothing to prove because the book itself can't be proved. So, like,
Yeah.
anybody that comes at me with that book is a reference. I'm like, that book, there's not a thing in there that stood up to any scrutiny whatsoever or any peer review. And actually, there's about 20 dozen studies done afterwards
Right.
that disproved everything in that book. Am I correct? I mean, like that's
Mostly the most sterile, the most grace I could give it, if I had to give it grace, is that IQ scores are different.
that
That's it.
okay.
Now,
Yeah, but that was
what do
proven in other
IQ
books
scores
before he
test,
wrote this one. So I can't even
right?
give him that
And is it
because
genetic or environmental? We can have a whole discussion about that. I'm made of opinions about
is
it.
it
Very
is
well
it not
informed
both
opinion.
like everything? Is it not both like everything? Because of course, there's something to a little bit of it, but one kernel does not make a field. I mean, we all know that. Okay, they
Yeah.
of course it's both. The the nature versus nurture thing has been around forever, and it's kind of akin to that. Like there are times it depends on context, it depends on apples to apples or apples to oranges, it depends on how you're applying it when it would
Exactly.
be different. And so with IQ, I think it's offensive, and I think it's used in such an egregious manner, and I think you agree with me. I think most people do.
Oh,
um
yeah. I think it's most dangerous when you try to frame it through the lens of like biological determinism or genetic determinism, where you can make a claim like, well, IQ is inherent, it's genetic.
Mhm.
Therefore, environmental efforts to improve it are useless. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to thread that needle of science and social policy. And let's be
Yeah.
clear. Science has a role in social policy, but it's not to determine the principles. The principles are determined elsewhere, and science is used to achieve those values and principles. Okay. So
Exactly.
this is trying to use science as a way of structuring society, which is the wrong way to do it. Now, quick ending to the story. Dr. Tucker's book came out before the bell curve, so obviously it wasn't included in his analysis. But because he's an expert on the topic, let's see if I still have it. He held a seminar. Yes, I do. Bill Tucker held a seminar on February 27th of 1995,
Mhm.
and I have the notes. And that seminar is a discussion about the bell curve, and it's the semester after the class that I took from him. And he pretty much lays out in no uncertain terms why he has arguments against the bell curve. Without going into detail about them, to finish the story about my relationship with Dr. Tucker after I graduated, I maintained correspondence with him. And I was fortunate enough for him to share some of his manuscripts that eventually became his last book. And he
Mhm.
gave me permission to make videos about it and promote it and stuff. And so those were the first videos that I made on this passion project of bringing to life Dr. Tucker's material. Was his most recent the uh, the book that was published posthumously, and that is
Mhm.
The Bell Curve in Perspective. So
Right.
if you'd like to go to my channel, I have videos
Mhm.
reviewing that, summarizing that whole thing. And then
Let me
after I finished that, I realized I have all of Dr. Tucker's books, and they all tell the same story from a different perspective. And I would love to be able to braid those stories together in a way that's unified, a unified story of the history of psychology that explains why there is such a thing as scientific racism today, where it came from, and
Mhm.
how civil rights is responsible for it. So that's
Mm-hmm.
my Dr. Tucker story. Everything couldn't have timed out perfectly. 1994, I'm going to Rutgers. I'm taking Dr. Tucker's class. The bell curve comes out. I'm fascinated by it because I took Dr. Tucker's class. We maintained correspondence. I ended up writing a letter for him when he retired because I was a student of his and he was such a big influence of mine. So, like, when he passed away from throat cancer, unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
his estate published the book. They set up a colloquium, William H. Tucker colloquium in Camden, Rutgers, Camden, New Jersey, and as that was happening, I, for shits and giggles, decided to do an audiobook version of Dr. Tucker's last book, just because
Oh,
it was just like one of those things, like, let me see if I can do this. And I did. And it just so happened when I found out, by the way, I teach at Rutgers Camden.
uh-huh.
So I teach at my alma mater in the department that Dr. Tucker taught in,
Tell them,
right?
what are you teaching there currently? Yeah.
This semester I'm teaching intro to psychology. Next semester and summer semester I'm teaching childhood development, psychology of childhood development.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, they won't let me teach intelligence because it's such a crazy fucking topic. I don't think that they would. I don't think they would have gotten to me to even in the spirit of Dr. Tucker.
Right.
Nonetheless, so now I teach at Rutgers, and in corresponding with my colleagues, which used to be my professors, um, it came across my radar that they were doing this whole thing for Dr. Tucker. I was like, oh, really? I have his most recent book. I have the what are they
Mm-hmm.
called before you print them? The begins with an S.
The manuscript or the
No,
syllable, the
there's a very
syllabus?
specific name for like the PDF.
Oh, I don't know. I just know that it came out in 2024, 2 years after his
Yes.
demise. Yes. Yes.
Anyway, well, I had access to it, and because he sent it to me early, I started recording these audiobook versions of it. So by the
Mm-hmm.
time it was published, I had completed the audiobook version, which I still have and haven't done anything with because
You
it's
need
still
to
kind
send
of
it to me because I love to read, but I do have a hard time reading Tucker because he just sends me for a loop. I think
well, I'll
he's
tell you what, reading Dr. Tucker is not any easier than I'm sorry, listening to Dr. Tucker being read is no easier than reading him. I'll tell you what, man, he writes like paths paved by the way the donkey walks. It's just like he wants to pack fucking everything into that one sentence, and it's 5 pages long.
and
God
I,
damn, Bill.
the people that follow me know I read legal briefs for breakfast, but I
Yeah.
have to take him in. I can't even finish like a whole chapter. I have to take it in small chunks and then
Oh
come
yeah, you
back
have to.
like a day or two. I cannot like just read and have it build like right away. There's
No.
just so, like you said, there's so much in like 5 paragraphs that I'm like looking this up and I'm looking at, there's a lot. There's a lot in there. Oh.
After a while, you get used to it, right? Because I recently got his the only book of his that I don't have, which is called the Cattell Controversy about Raymond Cattell.
Oh, okay.
But
I didn't.
I was able to breeze through that. And
Oh.
I think it's because I have read and reread 2 of his books so many times that I get it. Like, he's not going to tell you what a person's name is. He's going to tell you every position that person had before
Mm-hmm.
he tells you what their name is. And then he'll tell you how many awards they received. And then he'll tell you why that person is important as a character. It's like, come on, Bill.
Like it's all these sideways. It's kind of like the way I talk, like when I'm trying to talk about something and I go on these little segues here and then I come
Yeah.
back and I go up there. That's how he writes. And I don't recommend. Yeah, it's hard. It is hard. It is.
So
But
fortunately, I am able to grok his writing style, and I had him as a professor, and I have all of these emails where he and I are talking. I mean, I'm flattered enough to say that his most recent book, before he started giving me copies of it, he said that he was inspired to start writing it because of questions I was emailing him. So that makes me feel like validated to the nth degree.
Well, the
That
fact that you
said,
had such a long-term relationship with someone you admired and respected so much, and that you are now on, let's be honest, you are on the same path, believe it or not, as William Tucker.
well,
Give yourself a little nod there. You are
I don't know
teaching, you
about
are
that.
inspiring. Well, no, are you not teaching what you believe at Rutgers?
I teach, yeah. I don't have a PhD. I didn't go to Princeton.
No, no, you're
I
not.
didn't get no
I'm not.
fellowship awards.
Mhm. But when it comes to our relationship with the universe and what we put out here for other people, does the PhD matter? No, it's the conveying of the information and wherever and however that you got it. And I do see some similarities in his passion. Like he may be more well educated, but his passion for the subject and to be able to present this stuff in the way that it is, you're on that path. Like
Well,
you only have to go
instead of
look at the last 5 videos to see that. Like,
well, I
sir.
consider myself less of an expert and more of a guide, right? Because
Well,
my
that's
specialty is
it.
science communication. So
Mhm.
I might not be able to pinpoint all of the details in real time during a debate, but I know how to throw together a nice story that pulls in all the factors that I think are important.
I think that William Tucker would be honored to have you be his communicator for these issues. I do.
Well, he was a fiery son of a bitch. I would have loved to have heard him. And I'm super curious. I mean, so the bell curve was written by two people, Dick Herrnstein and
Mhm.
Charles Murray. And Dick Herrnstein died before Bell Curve was published. I wonder why Charles Murray and Bill Tucker never had an opportunity to correspond over all those years,
Hmm.
but they didn't. And I think that's a fucking crying shame.
It
But
is because I think the bell curve, like, regardless of what their premise was to put it out there, it could have benefited from real input in scientific community, to tell you the truth. Yeah. But at least if
well,
they had some kind of point that I mean, I know the points that they were trying to make, but for credibility purposes alone, if you do not look outside your little box to get
mm,
credibility from the rest of the community on it, I mean, what is the value of it now? I mean, even a layperson, I'm not a scientist, I don't have a PhD, I don't have a master's, I got a college education, but I look at the bell curve and I go, this is the biggest, thickest waste of paper because there's nothing I can point to as a source of any to use for anything. This is somebody's idea of getting a notion out there and decided to spend 3,000 pages to try to convince everybody else. But really, it's just an opinion piece in the way I look at it. Yeah,
it's bold. On top of the fact that
exactly.
oh, there's always more. Like, we haven't even gotten to the content of my videos. And just I mean, just talking about the bell curve. And the best part is, sorry, my cat is just so indecisive right now. The best part about talking about the bell curve and talking about my videos is everything that my videos are doing now is the lead up to how we got to the bell curve. Because, excuse me, I'm going to go through it backwards. The bell curve itself uses as a major part of its references a scientist named Arthur Jensen, and Arthur Jensen's
Mhm.
work promoted racial differences in education and IQ. And he used very fancy language to pretty much say, hey, it's not that I'm racist. I think both blacks and whites are educable. It's just that, whites are able to understand abstract concepts and their education style should reflect that. And, blacks and people with low IQ should be taught more like in a rote memory type way because they can't grok, abstract concepts. So as innocent and light and Mr. Rogers-ish as that sounds, it's still hiding a very harsh truth, which is the belief that there is a genetic difference between races in IQ scores. Hold
Mhm.
on. Excuse me. So that person, Arthur Jensen's research is controversial because it was
Mhm.
funded by the Pioneer Fund. The Pioneer
Mhm.
Fund is a major character in all of my videos because the Pioneer Fund is a funding source for a lot of what we consider scientific racism
Mhm.
ever since the Brown versus Education case. So from Brown versus Education, we get to the bell curve. And then once we get to the bell curve, we can draw a pretty clear line to modern day politics. Why? Because what the bell curve talks about is the cognitive elite, right? And it talks
Mhm.
about it in a kind of glowing way. Excuse me. The authors write as if their audience is part of the cognitive elite that they're talking about, and also the friends that they hang out with.
Mhm.
And excuse me, 40 years later, who's Trump railing against? The cognitive elite, right?
Mhm.
Not the financial elite. Excuse me.
Oh, of course, not the 1%. Just those trying to rein the 1% into helping everybody else. Yeah. The
This
cognitive
cough
elite.
break is brought to you by the best new soda on the market,
What is
7
it?
Up
7 Up?
Tropical.
Really? What did
Oh,
they add? Did they add mango or peach or what? What they
that's
add for the top?
exactly right. Maybe a little coconut too. This
Oh,
shit
if
is
they
on
put
fire.
pineapple in there, I'm there. Then I would like that. Like, no, yes, I like me
I have
mango and
pineapple juice. I should pour
yes.
this into pineapple juice.
Yes, I think that would be delicious, actually. It's
That's right.
eugenic. You're
7 Up
correct, Miles.
Tropical. For
That
when you
is
want to stop coughing during a live stream.
during a live stream. Exactly. Let's hope that they'll promo the video for us and get it out there. Tiles, I do believe that we are talking a little bit about eugenics in yes, in a roundabout kind of way. Mm.
Yes, we
Well,
will.
but
Well,
yes, yeah,
we're getting
eventually.
there. Ha ha
Yeah.
ha ha.
Mm-hmm.
Pina, do you
Mm.
like pina coladas? Or getting
Yes.
caught in the rain?
And yes, and walks on the beach. Yeah, I'm a Jersey girl. Like, yeah, you gotta live on those pina coladas, you know. I think we get weaned on them. Look, it's like there's just something about being here on the shore your whole life. Like it's a whole thing. Well, I know you know. It's like a
Mhm.
whole thing. It never leaves you. Even if I don't go to the beach and I just can't lay out there. Like, I don't go to the beach. Yeah, but still, it's a whole
But
thing.
it's its own vibe.
Yes, it
So,
is.
relating things to contemporary politics.
Yes.
Once we separate America from the strong middle class of the 50s through the carving of the middle class of the 80s, we do kind of, Charles Murray has a point in saying there's a larger divide between the elites and the regular people, except he was kind of talking about it from aren't we awesome perspective. Well, here comes Trump like a fucking wrecking ball, and he's like, cognitive elites, experts bad, right? Economic elites good, billionaire power, right? But he particularly tapped into America's hatred for professional elites, essentially
Mhm.
people who tell you what to do, right? Or people who make you feel like you're being told what to do, because it's a feels like, right? It's a feels like. It's a diaper
Mhm.
being wet. It's a don't tell me what to do, America, freedom, liberty bullshit.
Yeah, it's like pulling it back to the basics and forgetting that to have a civil society and a governing body that we do need cognitively. We do need some elites who actually know the history, actually have read the Constitution, know what it is, know what the laws of our land are, actually know how government works, like the three branches of it and how they work together. Like, there's nothing bad about any of that. And if you're uncomfortable with it because you don't understand it, well, that's because you didn't look, because like there's plenty of information out there. And he's using it against us. He's literally using against the fact that we know how government works or is supposed to work and the laws of the
Mhm.
land, as if we're trying to make people do something against their will. Forgetting that the Constitution put all this in place. We all voted on it. We all organized together. It was all of us.
Yeah.
Not,
How nice would
not
it be to have like experts in, like the military branch that know how to use a skiff?
Exactly. How about like the heads of these military branches actually having something to do with the military, understanding
This
the
is what
concept.
happens when you have non-experts at the adult table with access to the levers and pulleys that
That's a
experts should
whole
have.
nother video. That's a whole nother stream, which you're more than welcome to come back and do. But like I
Yeah.
could do that one for a week. I could do
Yeah,
that one.
because I mean, it really, for me, comes down to it's easier to deconstruct than to reconstruct. Like, it's going to be so much easier to be a wrecking ball and clog up the
Exactly.
system, and
You
then
you
point to the fact that they're clogged up as evidence that the government doesn't work, just to give more power to a tyrant
exactly.
or a
Exactly. You don't
populist.
You don't blow it all up. You take what's there, you figure out why it's not working. Because I will admit, we all have good intention when we make all these laws and regulations and we put these things on schools and this and that. There was a reason we did it. You go back to the history, you find out why, you see if the problem is resolving, and you tweak it, you move it, you pull it back, you do what you got to do. You don't
Yeah.
just blow it all up and then
I don't know. I don't know. So
I
I'm in Lancaster County, and we are the county of snack foods, and Charles Chips is here. And
love
I burnt down the Charles Chips factory because one time I bought a bag of Charles Chips, and one of the chips was a little overcooked, and I didn't like it. So I just burnt down the whole place because that's
Oh,
what you're supposed
Jesus.
to do, right?
To do that, Charles Chips is one of the only ones that still comes in a can. Like we used to get
You
delivery
can
of
get
Charles
tins.
Chips.
You can still
You get
get
the
tins of Charles Chips.
tins of Charles Chips, and they did decide to separate. I understand your issue though, because they did separate them. They got the dark chips you can buy, and they got the light chips you can buy. And
Yeah.
apparently, the
Well,
two are not
but
supposed.
when you mix the two, then it's false advertising. You obviously don't know what you're doing, and we need to start from scratch.
Yeah, let's just forget the fact it's just one overcooked chip there, Christopher. But okay, now that time I did use your full name because you are in trouble. Like that was
Oh
bad.
yeah, that's
That was
a
bad. That was bad.
troublemaker's sentence, to say
That
the
was a
least.
troublemaker sentence to burn down the factory over one chip. Like that's pretty
Yeah.
bad. But I think they get our point. Like you know, if you don't understand the history of why things or how they got there or what the intent was, you really can't go in
Mhm.
there and just knock about it. And that's what's going on now. There's a lot of knocking about and tearing things down. Just the statements on Social Security about talking about 11-year-olds having loans when that
Yeah.
is not a loan, it's a benefit because that 11-year-old's child died that paid into Social Security. I mean, parent died that paid into Social Security, and that is a pre-funded benefit to an underage child to use the system. It's not a loan. Just the misuse of language alone to sell what the well anyway.
Well,
Sorry.
that's that misuse of language is old, is a tale as old as time, right? I think that the problem now is it's just taken for granted that that kind of breach of decorum is normal.
Mhm.
I also fear that for people that are
Exactly.
online and young, they don't recognize certain dog whistles.
Mhm.
And I don't want to be like Joe sensitive that thinks everything is
Mhm.
a dog whistle. But as somebody who has looked at the history of intelligence testing and social Darwinism and the efforts to
Mhm.
keep immigrants out, and social Darwinism and its eugenic consequences, and the thought of people that are people of color or savages, like all of these ideas that leftist Jews are working with mulattoes to bring down the
Mhm.
white Christian, like these ideas have existed since the 1930s. This isn't like a brand new, like you have put your
No,
finger on the pulse, right?
it's
You
a very
have
familiar
decoded,
playbook.
you've
Mhm.
cracked the code. No, you haven't. You're feeding into just the
Mhm.
racist playbook that has existed for over 100 years.
Yes, and they've actually broadened it. Like they've actually just broadened it. But one factor of it remains the same, and that is the supremism that they're putting out there, the elitism that they're putting
Mhm.
out there, that the 1% is what matters and no one else does. That's it. No one else does.
And it's
Yeah.
confusing because they're ringing in populists, right?
Mhm.
So there's this disconnect between all of these different variables. Whereas 100 years ago, it was super clear. There's social Darwinists that think that there is a hierarchy,
Mhm.
and the people at the top belong at the top because that's a natural aristocracy and they have that merit, right? It's all super clear what
What
we're talking about.
yeah, but wouldn't
Nowadays,
history actually debunk that like right away? Because every royalty, every country that actually believed that did not those royalists just like die out because naturally they just died out because you cannot breed upon the same genetic substance and expect it to stay strong. It's impossible. It's
listen,
impossible.
hopefully everyone has a sixth cousin, okay?
Yeah, exactly. There's back doors in every house for a reason. I'm just saying, it's just against natural selection that that would work. And the fact that they're selling this out there as if it's a thing, and even just common sense just tells you it's not. Like it's just not.
Well,
it's
at least that was a linear thought, even though it's not tethered to reality. The whole natural aristocracy,
Mhm.
meritocracy, social Darwinism, the people at the top naturally belong there, the people at the bottom naturally belong there. Like that whole thing kind of makes sense because, like, oh, and if we use IQ test as a metric, all of the immigrants with low IQs are bringing down the IQ of society. We want to keep the IQ of society higher. When it goes down, that's called dysgenics as compared to eugenics. Dysgenics is the bringing down of the IQ of a population. So these ideas were consistent in that way. Today, it is not consistent at all, right? Because you have people like Elon Musk saying that America should be a meritocracy, but he wants to bring in immigrants to do the really hard work because America's best isn't good enough to do the hard work. So you should vote for him to import people to do the hard work. What? Hold on a second. America.
Wait, I thought we were. Wait a minute. I
I
thought
thought
we
we
were
were
we
against
were
the
deporting
elitists.
and I thought we were deporting everybody because they were stealing our jobs. So what are you talking about? Like, now we
Yeah,
gotta
and
bring
we
them all.
can't live in social harmony with people of color because they're obviously eating our cats and they're eating our dogs, but they're
Peter and our
taking our
dogs.
jobs because they're way smarter than us, according to Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk. But at the same time, we need to protect our borders because of Trump, and we hate elites. But at the same time, we love elites because they give us the good things. But at the same time, right? None of it fucking makes sense.
No, not if you
The
look at it.
meritocracy that Elon Musk is talking about is not within the American populace
No,
by
it's
any
not.
stretch of the imagination.
And anybody who doesn't actually research the words that Elon Musk uses, like you're falling for it because his use of language alone is all. He just, it's like he made up his own. He uses these terms with his own definitions of them to prove points, and they just don't make any sense to me. It just,
I
it's
think
insane.
I think it's a symptom of a like Silicon Valley bro, right? Because you have your Peter Thiel, doesn't make sense. You have your
Mm.
JD Vance, barely makes sense. You have your Elon Musk, might be on the spectrum, but doesn't make sense. And then you have Curtis Jarvis or whatever his name is. Holy fuck, does that guy not make sense?
He does not. And I don't even want to give Musk credit or the out of being on the spectrum. I don't think he's been diagnosed. I really don't think he is on the spectrum. I think
And I don't
he's
want to say
just,
that as a disparaging thing. Like
no,
if
not
he
even
speaks an
disparaging. I just want to
unusual.
say he's batshit. Like, I really think he's a little bit off his rocker there. I think he's been too sheltered.
He's so insensitive to social cues. I hate to say it, but it's like
That
it
could
almost feels
come
like I'm
from
giving him
yeah,
benefit of the doubt.
that could come from how he was raised too. Like, he's been from country to country. He's been very, very rich, and they don't necessarily have a great social, not like you or I. They don't socialize
Mhm.
the same way because of the circles, and they're alone a lot. And that could
Yeah.
actually, count for it. Besides what people want to tag on it.
Oh yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, I think it's more about having all that money and doing what he does because that does
Yes.
compartmentalize him. It puts him above in a way from
Yes.
the normal fray, does it not? Yeah.
Yes. All right, let's take a little time out. I see that we're about 45 minutes in. We got another 45 minutes. We got some
Mm-hmm.
comments in the chat. Let's
Yes, we
address
do.
those before we miss them.
Yeah, we're
And I want
talking
to say
about
hi to everybody. Hello, Teresa and Tomorrow Kiddo. Liam, what up? Clarence, Tiles, Mippic,
yeah,
Flying Mouse Aquatics.
they all, and thank you all for being here to listen. There's one in here about it being more capitalist than meritocracy. What he's been talking about it, the capitalism, and I guess that's consistent with capitalism, in a way that's true. And
So do you want to tackle that really? Because
not yes, Lee, because because Tiles, I don't know if you're American or not. The capitalist argument here in America is kind of like moot because it's in everything. It's just like we just admit, like, everything is about money here. That's how everything gets done, even when we try to do something good. If we're doing something good, legislative wise, we want to feed kids lunch everywhere in America. It's going to become a political capitalist nightmare no matter what. Like, it's so ingrained in everything we do that, like, it's hard to hard to take that out of the conversation, isn't it? Like, would
It's
you agree?
well, the
Yeah.
way that I see it, and this is, I'm no expert in anything. Um, I think it's for me, it's part of a vestigial part of the Protestant work ethic, where your
Hmm.
value, your merit is based on your productivity. And America is the land of opportunity, right? After World War II, we separated ourselves from Germany because they were very race genetic science, and we
Hmm.
became very behavioristic. Like, hey, everybody is a blank slate, and we are the environment of opportunity that affords you the ability to climb the social ladder. Like, that's the
Hmm.
American dream, right? At least that's the idea that the American dream is based off of. And a meritocracy is just this idea that the the people with the most merit get the jobs that deserve the most merit, right? Unfortunately, that's not how society works, right?
Hmm.
Neither for the people at the top end or the bottom end of the socioeconomical whatever spectrum. For
Hmm.
people on the low end of the socioeconomical spectrum, they don't have access to the things that put them in the environment where the jobs of
Our
the
availability.
elite are even being posted,
Hmm.
right? So this isn't a matter of equality of um what was I going to say, equality of outcome. This is just equality of opportunity. Like, let's make sure that the job applications are going out evenly, right? And then let's look on the other side, and that's just one example. Then let's look on the other side of the socioeconomical status continuum, people who are high in elite, aristocratic, exceptional performance. These are kids that, since they're in kindergarten, are getting prodded and poked and tested.
Hmm.
Every inch of their life is a metric. Could you imagine that? And which is better and which is worse? So of
Right.
course these kids are getting into the best schools, but now they're asymptotic with like the best. The difference between them and the other best is a hair's width
Hmm.
difference as compared to the kids without the opportunity. And now you want there to be a meritocratic society. Well, how is that possible when money buys
Without
you
opportunity, when
the
money buys you
advantages?
opportunities, money buys you opportunity in America. That's it. That's what I mean by the
It buys you the
capitalism.
cheat code. When
Yes, it
money
does.
buys you the cheat code to success, then like where's the merit?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, that's like, I didn't mean that capitalist was America. I just want to clarify the titles. I mean the way that Elon is using it, the way that he is using it to prove things. It's going to be almost impossible in our society, the way America is, because of capitalism, because money rules, and because there is not opportunity in the, let's say, 60% of our country. Like, let's be
Mhm.
honest, 60% of our country is barely is making it, but not enough to actually start their own business or get a master's degree or to actually live that dream. More than 60% of our country is that way. Okay. Yes, people are making money. It's a successful. There are success stories everywhere, but it's not the majority. And that has to be made clear. And it's the majority that's keeping the ones that are able to take these opportunities and to use the capitalist system to their it's the ones we're supporting it. The ones that are working in the businesses that get started, the ones that are keeping it going and keeping it open, just to put food on their table and a roof over their head. So it's like a catch 22. So, there's no way that Elon's premise of meritocracy could work in America. Not that way. Not the way he's selling it. There's no way.
And let's
All
also
it.
look at he thinks everyone's stupid, right? Because how do you simultaneously attempt to be a populist, arguing for meritocratic or meritocracy, and also investing in an AI that'll replace the jobs of a whole swath of people should it be as successful as Elon Musk wants? So then what? Now he's going to have a nation full of what? People that he's admitting can't do the H1, whatever
The
the
testing
jobs,
kids,
the
the
immigrant
jobs.
jobs, right? He has to bring
Hmm.
in immigrants to do the high level jobs. He's having AI just gut all of the other jobs on the other end of the spectrum. So now what? What is he?
But the whole thing is premised on the fact that they don't want to pay for American people to be educated enough to do this. Now, if they want to take a step back and give us some healthcare and some education, so your meritocracy might have a crap shooting hell of working here, that's another story. But you cannot leave it the way it is and expect that it's going to work. All you're doing is lining the pockets of the 1%. And feeding off the top. The top is they're only going to get fatter while everybody else gets thinner. Period. It cannot work. And yet they're selling it to the 60% as if this is going to make your life better. And I don't see how. Tell us how. Everything that they have said, none of it tells us how. How does that make it better for you or me or anyone in that chat? No.
Well, unfortunately, they're looking at things through almost an exclusively economic or scientific lens.
Of course we do. We got a shyster in a almost gonna lose his fortune billionaire looking to line their pockets.
Yeah.
Like seriously, everything they're doing is only making their lives better. They're not speaking for you or I or anyone else. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the purse strings of America's science and research, as well as the health of the nation, are in the hands of conspiracy theorists.
And that's how you know. That's how you know. What's the first thing they caught? Every single funding to prove against anything that they're talking about. All of the funding for research in science has been dismantled and put on hold because they don't want any pushback about anything that they're saying. Period.
Because don't get me started about that. I mean, I work at a science center, right? That is dependent on NIH funding mostly.
Exactly. So, now I understand that there are policies, like we could get into it, like there's big pushback on DEI policies, there's big pushbacks on the advancement of, hiring policies and promoting women and people of ethnicity and this and all. But they got to remember that there was a reason that got put in place years ago. What we failed to do is do the research and the studies to make sure that it still wasn't working and the tables were turning. And I do admit that the tables were turning and certain people are disadvantaged by these programs. And that has made some problems. But it's not so much that we had to make a law about it. If our capitalist country said it's okay to make profit, but you got to be reasonable about it, and you can't be discriminatory, and we made the penalties for being discriminatory higher instead of mandating that you do certain things, it might have went a different way. Because that's what was going on. Discrimination because of who you were, not whether you could do the job. And now it's the opposite. You get the job because we don't want anybody to say we discriminated. And it doesn't, and then the actual abilities of the job. And that's what they're using against us. Would you agree in regards to those policies? That's what they're trying to use against us in regards to those policies.
Well, from my perspective, they've changed the crosshairs from being on people of color to now the new target is trans. People who are, or the LGBTQ plus community, right? Like just look at the recent fires in California. I literally had a friend of mine say, what do you think the probability is that 2 lesbian women were the most qualified people for that job? And I was just like, dude, just tell me you think a guy would have done better.
Wait,
what's that?
That's actually, somebody actually said that. That's what gets me. Like somebody actually said that.
Oh yeah. They thought they were being super slick, but yeah. I mean, that my buddy, and I think that of course I have friends that I think are smart, and I hate to think that they're complete and utter bigots. But if my friend, who I try to have a firewall of who my friends are, if my friend thinks that, because I know he listens to far right radio and YouTube shit, think of how many other people are thinking that, or all of the fucking idiots that are using science, right? So instead of scientific racism, we can talk about scientific sexism, and not specifically the kind that has been going on forever against women, right? With like only men coming up with ideas of what women's problems are, both biologically and psychologically, whether it's Freud or, Masters and Johnson or whoever. But specifically about the whole chromosomes, bullshit with, oh, well, what is a woman? The whole Matt Walsh bullshit.
Oh my gosh.
So I think that there's a different form of scientific sexism that mimics the scientific racism. racism. It's essentially a way to deny citizens equality under the 14th Amendment, right?
It's
Why
discrimination.
treat
No matter what.
why
Yeah.
treat trans people as equals? They're obviously pretending to be someone else,
Why
right?
care? Why care? What you care to what they're pretending about? Like, what does that have to do with the quality of a job that somebody does, or the fact that they are still a human being with the same equal rights that we all should have? Like, that's what I don't get. Like, discrimination in any way. Um,
Yeah, you don't get it, do you, Claire? Any movement forward by groups that are discriminated against means a step backwards for the lower and middle class. Don't you understand? As a white
no, I
person
don't.
in
Not
America,
when
the
I know
American
that
dream
America,
says that I should
60%
be
of
at
the
the
world.
front of the line. And
Yeah,
when you
but
put
the
black,
middle class.
lesbian, disabled
That is the
people
middle
in front of
class.
the
Wait a minute.
line,
Wait a
well, they're
minute. But
taking
hold
away
on.
from me.
But that is the middle class. Women and people of ethnicity and the disabled and the LGBTQ. That's the freaking middle class. Like, that's what I don't get. That's what I don't get. This
The only way
small.
for them to gain is for me to lose, Claire.
Yes, but here it is. They're saying, wait a minute.
It's a
They were
zero-sum
oppressed.
game, isn't it?
Yeah, but here it is. They were oppressed. Listen, they went, we admit we went and we oppressed everybody. And now, because let's just call it like a certain age, white male society is feeling the oppression right now because they are outnumbered, outjobbed, and out successed in many fields. And I'm not being derogatory. I love men. Sorry. This is just a fact. Okay. This is where this is coming from. These are the people who are speaking on it. Okay. The older ones that are being aged out and the younger ones that can't get a job because they don't want to do the jobs to work up the ladder A to
Uh-oh.
Z. They're not having the opportunity that they have. Okay. They're not having the opportunity. Okay. Because of these policies. And I understand where that is coming from, but the answer is not oppression. You feel oppressed. So what do? You get a bigger hammer and you keep everybody else down. That is not going to work. It didn't work before. We need to change it. I understand the issue. Listen, you say I don't get it, but believe me, I get it. And I feel for it. I feel for my nephews. I
There's a
feel for
lot of
my
angry
brothers.
people, Claire. There's a lot of
Yeah.
angry people. And if you know how to harness that outrage, I mean, the racism problem in America, the soft underbelly of racism in America is just a finger
And yet
scratch away.
every day people tell me, Claire, there's no racism in America anymore. I said, you don't live here. I see it.
Oh, go to the hate map on the
Yes.
Southern
And
Poverty Law Center's
right.
website.
And
Go
we're
to the
on the
hate map.
East Coast. We're on the East Coast. We don't see it anywhere near how everybody else is seeing it on the East and the West. We don't see it as much as the middle. And I see it every day here on the East Coast. I see it in everything, everywhere still. And to me, it's just getting worse. Not better, worse.
Well,
You're
it's
right.
going to keep
That I
getting
don't
worse
understand.
if people don't understand history, right? When people
Exactly.
hear meritocracy and it doesn't hit their radar as like, well, hold on a second. Meritocracy only works all things being equal. And that part's not, that's what prevents it from being tethered to reality, the all things being equal part, right? When things are equal, yeah, let's work towards meritocracy. But until then, you don't know what you're talking about. Or when people talk about a natural aristocracy, they're like, Thomas Jefferson talked about natural aristocracy. Well, come on. Like, you don't need to. It's
Thomas
not a leap.
Jefferson
It doesn't take a
increased
lot of
his
brain cells to
heritage.
rub together to say what you're saying.
Yeah. No, yeah, but he also increased his bloodline, quite diversified. May I say that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or when you say that, when you hear that the liberal Jews are the ones that are facilitating this equalitarian idea because it's bringing down their enemy, which is white Christians. Those ideas still exist, and they didn't just start now.
Yeah, but it's all who's using the argument for what? Like, I don't even believe that argument because I don't see it. Like, I just don't see it. I mean, I understand that religions are going to be against each other, and that is a very
What are you
personal thing.
talking about? Well, the Jews control, hold on a second, Claire. The Jews control Hollywood. Hollywood messaging is increasingly more and more diverse. They're pushing diversity down the throats of America so that eventually Jewish people, the space lasers people, will have control over American culture, and from that groundswell, they'll be able to take control of politics, because
Yes,
that's
because
all that Jews want, are power,
yes,
is
because
power.
people, okay, I only have one thing to say about that. It's not going to be very kind. It's because, yeah, because like most people would have a brain, actually take what an actor says seriously. Excuse me? Excuse me?
Yeah, I'm just saying, there's lots of
I,
angry
I,
Americans.
I mean, hey, you know what? I love me some Marvel in my superheroes, but like they can get out here and promote anything they want, and that does not make them the no all and be all. Like, no,
No,
no, I don't. Hollywood can push whatever they want, but anybody that actually wants to find the real, the real
I know,
information,
it's like a
no,
weird admission that you're a slave to media. Like, there's
it's,
nothing in that logic, which is, I only watch what I want, right? It's like the tacit inference that, like, I have to watch it. If it comes out, I have to watch it. I have kids; I have to watch it. No, you don't. You actually
listen.
don't.
I don't take anything that comes out of Hollywood any more seriously than than listening to an orange tanned man who barely
Um,
made it through school, admits he hates to read, doesn't know what our Constitution actually says, has no idea how government works, and not to mention the 3,000 lawsuits before he even ran, and knew nothing about politics, in the 14 bankruptcies in whatever. And that's all the past before he decided to get into politics. Because if you're from the East Coast, like you and I, Chris, we all know this. We know that man better than most. We've
oh
seen
yeah.
it since he hit
His
hit.
reputation precedes him. Well, the reason why he's so against drag queens, in my opinion, is because he has such a weird boner for being number one at everything, that I think
Mhm.
he thinks that drag queens are his competition, because he has fake hair, he wears makeup, and heels.
And the
And I
shit, and
think
the,
that when he sees a drag queen, he's like, man, their makeup is way
well, we
more
must
fire than
admit,
mine.
we must
My hair
admit,
transplant isn't quite as good as that. And my lifts will never look like those chunky heels.
yeah, I got to tell you, he's against anybody who walks into a room and steals the presents from him, and that's a fact. You know, anybody that has any credibility, then he has to get them to fawn over him, or they're out.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's quite obvious. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah. Thanks for putting that image. I got to put that one up. He says,
Right.
Tile says, thanks for putting that image in my head.
All I got to say.
You're welcome. It is helping us get through. As Americans, we need to do this sometimes, to just to get through the day.
From my brain to yours, Tal.
Somebody
From my
meme that.
brain to yours.
Yes, somebody very creative. Go ahead and meme that one. I want to put it everywhere. I can imagine that in servers, all over the place. Yeah, that'll be good. But let's get back on your subject, because I know we got
Yeah.
another half hour, and I know this is important to you. I want to give you your moment.
Yeah. I mean, I'm having fun making these videos. Not the least of which is coming from enjoying the learning of videography, right? Like, my videos are getting a little bit better. Hopefully, each one, I'm getting a little bit better at post production, video titling, editing, and stuff like that. So, for my job, I need to make videos. So, what better way to practice than on content that I agree with and that
Hmm.
pays tribute to Dr. Tucker? So, um, the next video, so in this series, there are going to be 6 videos. I've completed 2. The second one premiered this past Thursday at 7, and the next one is going to be in a couple of weeks. Hopefully, I'll be able to get it done then. And it essentially starts with the idea that Brown versus Education opened the door for scientific racism to retaliate completely
Hmm.
by accident.
Right.
Because in 1956, when the court case for Brown versus Education was being fought, there were a lot of social scientists contributing as expert witnesses, saying that there is no difference between blacks and whites in educability and
Hmm.
intelligence, and that it was actually harmful to maintain segregation.
And this was
Um,
the segregation lawsuits, is what we're talking about, right? Oh.
This is integration, exactly. The
Mhm,
desegregation of schools, which is Brown versus education.
mhm,
And the lesson taken from that, unfortunately, wasn't, hey, this is illegal because of the 14th Amendment. The lesson taken home from that was the take home point was science determines racial policies, right? So unfortunately, Brown included science, and then from an optics perspective, the segregationists saw the science part and were like, "Oh shit! If all we need is science to prove racism, then scientific evidence you'll get."
mm,
But
mhm,
unfortunately, no scientist with integrity would support them because the popularity of eugenics had died down in the 1930s with World War II, right?
mhm,
And the consequences of eugenic thoughts there, even though they started in
mhm,
America. So it just wasn't there. You couldn't find scientists with integrity to glom onto your eugenics social policy or your attempt to block Brown or slow it down or explain why it's a mistake.
mhm,
So after Brown was decided and it looked like science was the determining factor, racist scientists who couldn't find organizations with integrity just made their own. And it was this like shell game where to the population, science is articles that come out in journals. So if you just had your own journal and published your own articles, they can almost
mhm,
say whatever you want because you can just point to the fact that they come from a scientific journal. Well, that's essentially what happened in the 1950s and 60s. There was a millionaire named Wyclef Draper who in the 30s took his philanthropy in eugenics and keeping America white, and he made something called the Pioneer Fund. And from the Pioneer Fund, he gave lots of money to make sure that segregation was held and that whites are above blacks and that
mhm,
eugenics are put in place as a solution to any racial problems. So, with money from Wyclef Draper, this association was made called the IAAEE, the International Association for Anthropology and Ethnography and Eugenics. And they started giving money to journals like the Mankind Quarterly. Now, here's where things get complicated. Wyclef Draper, the millionaire, he has his fingers in a lot of the racist movements throughout the 50s and 60s to prevent essentially equality and the Great Society of LBJ and civil rights. But Mankind Quarterly was made completely separately by a group of people that were already on the Pioneer Fund docket.
mhm,
So, Mankind Quarterly was made by Pioneer Fund people without Wyclef Draper's money. And then the IAAEE, which had the same exact people on their board, was promoting the Mankind Quarterly.
mhm.
So, Draper, Pioneer Fund, IAAEE promoting this publication that shared people on their editorial board. All of
Exactly.
that to say the Mankind Quarterly does not directly get money from Wyclef Draper, but
Mhm,
still exists as one of the most racist outlets for shitty science under the
mhm.
auspices of ethnography and anthropology.
It's
So,
still at it. Yeah.
oh, you can look up, well, maybe not. I don't know what you want in your search history. Mine's
Yeah.
jacked, but
Yeah, just
all
from
the
doing the
research that
research
I
for
do on
your
this stuff,
videos. Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine,
you
but
have to know how jacked up my fucking
no, but it's
search history
important.
is.
Like I the chat knows, like those that follow me know that I'm always speaking about like you have to understand the history of how we got to places or how certain things happen before you can ever attempt to do anything about it. And that's why I find the videos that you are doing so important because they clearly lay out how this has been started, promoted, funded, put through, how it's becoming a common thread, and unfortunately, how we are seeing it today, right now, every minute out
Oh,
here
I
in our political climate here in America. I don't know about the rest of the world. I can only speak to what I see here. But definitely, absolutely here. how it didn't go away. It's just being massively promoted even more. Um,
Oh, but wait, there's more.
oh,
So
I'm sure.
after I make this connection between like Brown is the beginning of scientific racism as we know it today, most of it is funded by the Pioneer Fund. They set up the IAAEE and they promote the Mankind Quarterly.
Hmm.
In the 1970s, there was a scientist named Arthur Jensen, the very one I talked about that is
Hmm.
used predominantly in the bell curve. And that's what the next series of videos will be about. The first three are about Brown and its consequences, and the last three are about Arthur Jensen and his
Hmm.
contribution to scientific racism. Now, here's where it gets better. Not only does the Mankind Quarterly still exist, again, be careful of your search history if you should choose to look for it yourself. But I just recently discovered in doing this research that the Pioneer Fund still exists.
Mm. It
That
does.
fucking blew that
Does it?
fucking blew my mind.
Oh, I thought they would have renamed it to something like Project 2025 or something.
Haha.
But
It
no.
did rename,
Uh-huh.
it is rebranded.
It's it because I don't know. Some things I read in that like are very, very familiar. Yeah.
Yes. So he's not he. The Pioneer Fund is now rebranded as the Human Diversity Foundation, because human diversity is the dog whistle for essentially racism, right? Looking at individual differences, getting a reason to look at population differences, group differences, stuff like that. So in fact,
Uh-huh.
I have Charles Murray has a book out called Human
So basically,
Biodiversity.
they're trying to put this cloak of like scientific education and all over
Yes.
something just to prove racism.
Ever since World War II, you're not allowed to be outwardly racist, anti-Semitic, or bigoted, right? The boundary of what is considered bigotry is changing as society goes on, right? Like, because of course, for a while, you couldn't make fun of black people, but you could still make fun of Italians and Polish people, and then you couldn't make fun, and then you could still make fun of women, and then you couldn't make fun of us, right? So like, it eventually the arc of hopefully culture is bending towards morality,
Mhm.
such that
Right. We
nobody
hope.
is the target group at any point in time, right?
Mhm.
But what was I just going to say? This is talking
Well,
about
we're
Jensen.
still on ginseng. Yeah, we're moving into the
Yes.
ginseng part of. Mhm.
So with Jensen, he is. I'm sorry. The Pioneer Fund rebranded
Mhm.
as the Human Diversity Foundation. It still exists, and are you ready for this? Our friend Peter
What?
Boghossian of How to Have How to Have Impossible Conversations. He
Peter
also
Boghossian.
he
Okay.
was a philosopher at University of Portland, Oregon, I think, that eventually quit his job. And he's a philosopher, atheist, street epistemology, I think, is kind of based off of his How to Have Impossible Conversations. So if you don't know who this guy is, look up Peter Boghossian.
Oh, I'm wikiing him for them right now.
Peter
But yeah.
Boghossian, get ready. Peter Boghossian gets money from a gentleman named Peter Conru. I think it's Peter, but his last name is Conru, Conru.
Mhm.
Conru gives money, drumroll please, to the HDF.
Which is misnamed because they forgot the word like anti-diverse. They forgot the anti in there, right? Because
Well, no, they want to show that humans are very diverse. Whites are separate from blacks. That's how diverse we are. We have whites, we have blacks, we have yellows, we have right. That's what diverse means to them.
to them it's just a matter of separate, like we're separate completely.
Yeah, you don't have
Yeah.
to say separate because that sounds separating when you can just say diverse. And it means the same thing to them. But to everybody else, it sounds like, yeah, I love diverse.
Diverse is a positive word to me. But not used in this context at all. That's what I say. It's
Well, no,
kind of
they're hacking. They're absolutely
kind of
hacking the
horrible.
language.
Horrible the way, yeah, they're hacking the
Oh,
way.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, to be clear, Peter Boghossian is receiving money from the same man who gives money to the Pioneer Fund.
Mm-hmm.
That means Peter Boghossian is naturally doing something that this guy just wants to support. Whatever this guy's agenda is, Peter Boghossian seems to meet whatever goals he has. Also, in that person's network and orbit is the Pioneer Fund, which specifically is looking for eugenic solutions to race problems. Further, Conroy, and this just keeps getting better. This Conroy, I literally just found most of this out in the past 2 weeks. This Conroy guy also paid somebody to write a document called the Equalitarian Dogma. Now, I just want to tell you something. In 1950, I'm sorry. In 1961, there was a book called The Equalitarian Dogma,
Oh,
and it was published in the Mankind Quarterly.
of
And
course.
it was written by Henry Garrett, who was a
Oh,
receiver of Pioneer funds.
and
So,
and now, of course, it's a source. Yeah. Okay.
no, it gets better. Somebody wrote a new book titled The Equalitarian Dogma, and it was funded by this guy that gave money to the Pioneer Fund. And this is
Just
also
here
the
we
same
go.
guy that gave money to Peter Boghossian. There's something that Peter Boghossian is doing that fits within the agenda of somebody who pays somebody to rewrite a book called The Equalitarian Dogma, which the original book was about how the Jews were working with mulattoes to bring down Christian whites, and the Pioneer Fund. What could it be that Peter Boghossian is saying or doing that he is lauded with monetary rewards from this fucking guy?
The convincing factor. How to have conversations to convey information that convince people. How to converse and convince anybody of anything you want. Isn't that
Hey,
Peter
Peter
Boghossian?
Boghossian, I'm sure you're watching, but if you are, I love having impossible conversations, brother. I'm really, really good at it. Super duper good at impossible If you ever want to talk about what it is that you're like, why? What could you be
Yeah,
doing,
why?
Pete? Let's you and me talk about what you could possibly be doing to
Good old
to curry the favor of this guy.
maybe a one-on-one interpretation on how to muddy the waters. I don't know, because that's really all he does.
I don't know, man.
I don't know.
So if anybody's in touch with Peter Boghossian, send him a clip, letting him know that his buddy Chris Maute really wants to talk
Maude,
to him about why.
Maude wants to talk to you. Why?
It's like being called to the principal's office. So
Christopher wants to talk to you, Peter. Peter, Christopher would like to see you in the office. Yeah. No.
Strap your
No.
balls on tight.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just the spinning of the wheels. It's too much for me sometimes. It does all lead up. I mean, they're paying for their own support of their own information. You know, they're paying to promote that out, to use it, to push this forward. It's not done by
It's all the
separate
same playbook.
done,
Make it
yeah.
look academic while you
Mhm.
break down the actual academic structures.
Yeah,
That way
because
there
they're
is
not
no difference after a while.
right. Because there is no sources in there. All the sources lead to the same place, into the same beginning of the conversation. It's not like, you know what I mean? It's like they're just paying to lay down the brickwork exactly the way they want it. It's not scientific research. It is not anything from the outside that's brought in. There's no studies. There's nothing.
I mean, I hate it when Idiocracy is a documentary. I mean, we literally, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like the president in Idiocracy was like sponsored by Gatorade or like some kind of Gatorade product. And didn't Trump just have like a Tesla commercial in front of the White House a couple days ago?
Oh, worse than that, the Secretary of Commerce went on a talk show and told everybody to buy Tesla stock because it was
eat
American.
shit.
I'm serious. He did. He did. I couldn't believe it. It was on Tucker Carlson. Well, I don't know if you could
That's
call
nuts.
that a talk show.
That's
Well,
nuts.
yeah, he was interviewed. That's the Secretary of Commerce, a government official, went out
Oh,
there, the person who, like, is supposed to do our checks and balances on what's legal and not, just broke every damn law going on national television and telling the American people what to buy.
this is what happens.
Hmm.
This is what happens when you don't have experts.
When you make
You-
expert a bad word, when you
Oh
make
man.
actually knowing what you're talking about some kind of crime, like this is what's happening. Like, yeah, you don't actually question, don't know what you're talking about, don't ask for sources, don't ask for real information. Yeah, we're all
And
going to get lost.
it breaks down like what is popular psychology. After a while, that's what it comes down to for me. Like, what is popular psychology? Like, I like I've studied science. I've studied psychology. I understand that the things that I do run counterintuitive to most people, right?
Mm,
Cognitive biases in psychology, disproving the null hypothesis in science, like everything is like the opposite of how you would expect it to go.
mhm,
Is it the case? So, and that being said, I understand that there is no one authority for anything. There is a consensus of experts, and there are experts that don't
mhm,
agree with the consensus. And there is no one person where it's like, well, they said it, therefore, right? But when I talk to people about politics that aren't in this field, they seem to have that. They're like, oh, well, so and so said, right? Or, like, for instance, because I like to have disagreements with my friends because they're friendly. And like, because I lean left, sometimes they'll take a talking head from the left and be like, "Did you hear what so and so said?" And blah, and they'll be like, "Huh," and I'm like, "Yeah, I disagree with them." And that seems to blow their mind. They're like, "But wait, you're on the left, they're on the left, they're an authority, therefore
no,
I
because
can argue with you about what they said." And it's like, no, that's that's not at all how this works.
challenge is the basis of true opinion based on information. Like, we all know that. If you can't stand up to challenge in your conversations, then you don't have any opinion based on true information. In fact, you don't have
But
a good
people are being
foundation.
fed bullshit. Like, let's bring this down to brass tacks. One of the most recent murders was done by somebody who was in like 4chan, 8chan channels where all of this race science stuff, their
Mhm,
manifesto included memes of
mhm,
race science shit that just exists everywhere. And they don't realize that it's bullshit, right? That one whatever infographic that they have doesn't represent the consensus of experts on that topic, right? These
no.
are all cherry picked pieces of shit to make people
Mhm,
like him who are on the edge get pushed over that edge. And that's
exactly,
how, like, that's how, what's the word I want to use?
and you can make it go anywhere now. Like, you can make
Yeah.
that bullshit go everywhere. As a matter of fact, everywhere, and make it look credible and believable just by the amount of it that's out there.
Right? And that's the scholastic part of it, where
Mhm,
it's like, well, we're not telling anyone to do anything, but there happens to be a small population of people who are highly reactive that might take what we say, but it's not our fault because that's a
mm,
mental health issue, and right. And that's the scary part for me is you can take advantage of people's gullibility because people haven't become less or more gullible. The avenues through which people receive shitty information has just increased
mm,
by an order of magnitude. So, as somebody who is interested in scientific literacy and science communication, obviously I'm a fan of critical thinking. Knowing
mhm,
about what happened in the history allows you to have the critical thinking should you want the examined life, right? Because the
mhm.
unexamined life isn't worth living.
Apparently.
Figure out what is happening now. Like,
Mhm,
what's the logical extension of that thought? Because that's not the first time that thought has come into the social sphere.
mm, that's right.
So, but anyway, enough about my preaching. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk.
Oh, no, I love your TED Talk. I love your TED Talk. So we got about, like, to go in for the hour and a half that we had planned. We've got about like 6 minutes. So if we wanted to wrap this up, to anybody listening to this later, or for those that have stayed with us for this hour and a half, how would you wrap it up to make them want to go see those videos? Like, if you had to explain what you feel is the main reason you put this out there, not just that, in admiration of your mentor and the whole process, but to correlate it to what's going on now, to make it valuable, to make it relate to what they may be experiencing now, especially here in America. I know I'm making it a little hard on you, making you
No,
think a little,
no,
but
I'll do my best. I'm up for the
I
challenge.
mean, that
I will
that's
just
what I
say,
want to hear. I mean, because to me, I see it. I see the value of it. It's important to me. I love the history of it. It reconfirmed foundations and beliefs that I have on how this process and how we're going. And it also started to feel real familiar about what I'm seeing right now, like what I'm seeing going on right now. And it gave me something to call it, something to point at, something to refer to. So you take it from there.
well, I'm going to put it like this. If you are concerned about politics in today's day and age, and you're tired of listening to shitty arguments, or you feel like there are shitty arguments out there and you don't exactly know why, I think that for fun, you should watch my videos because they're short and concise, and they go over a history of scientific racism that has essentially been a weird attempt at applying science to social policy in a way that it shouldn't. And nobody has learned the lesson that it shouldn't still. So we are still living in the shadows of this horrible thought that science should be used to determine social values. And we're seeing that played out in determining who is a man and who is a woman. What is a woman? A woman is a grown female, right? All of that
Mm-hmm.
happy horseshit. And for that reason, anyone who is claims to be a woman who is not an adult female doesn't deserve the equal treatment of, right? Anything that ends with deserve
Mm-hmm.
the equal treatment of. Those arguments are still being used, not just against trans people and not just against black people, but still against women, still against other people of color, still
Of
against
all
people with
ethnicity. You could expand it to everybody who is just not, that white. Let's just go
Mhm.
there. All male. I mean, nothing against you guys. Love you. But yeah, that's what it is. Like if you're not white in a guy, apparently this is all about it's all about the rest of us. And then apparently
Mhm.
there's something wrong with the rest of us. And the one thing that I hate about it is the less than. Because who the hell is anyone anywhere from any ethnicity, any country, any level of a caste system or monetary or educational promise to say that anyone is less than on a human scale, on a human dignity scale? And that's what this is about. That really gets in my crow.
The ideas in the far right are the same ideas that have been in the far right for 100 years.
Like
And
the
they have a very definite beginning, right? These are neither brand new ideas nor ideas that have existed forever,
mm-hmm.
right? Some ideas have. We can go back to what is it? Plato's Democracy, where he talks about silver versus bronze versus different kinds of people, but like the language of meritocracy, the language of social Darwinism, the othering of anybody that prevents white Christian superiority, right? Any
I love
argument
that.
against that, anyone who is threatened by that
Mm-hmm.
is
I
using the
love that
same
term, the othering, because like I might be
playbook.
white, but I get it used against me all the time. Like you don't believe. Like I might not believe. I'm an atheist, so obviously I'm immoral. I have no integrity. I don't have
Mhm.
moral. I have no ethics, because that's all like in their opinion God based. It's someone what? It's like yo. You can put this on anything, actually. Just that otherness, just that. I like that term. It's going to stick with me. The otherness that they try to make it. Everything else is the other. Yeah, that should be illegal. Like, let's work on that kind of legislation. But if we have, and it's not worked. We have it. It's not worked very well. Well,
So
yeah.
if you like sciencey stories about psychology and the history of why things are the way they are, then I think that you would dig the videos I'm kicking out.
Yeah, Marty's your man, if that's what you like. Marty is definitely your man. Even if they go back to some of your other Sunday conversations, always interesting, always like just full of that. But yeah. This has been enjoyable. I hope to have you back again.
Thank you. Yes,
Anytime
please.
you want to talk about anything. And that goes for all of you in the chat and anybody listening later. Like, It's important to have conversations. You don't have to be an expert, but to open up a dialogue on things that you see and you feel, to try to help others with an understanding, it's important now more than ever, I think, to just give everyone an opportunity to not be afraid to talk. Because that's the thing. Right now, the way it is, you and I could end up in Gitmo for what we just talked about today. You know, based on the last press conference that I heard, you and I are headed to Gitmo just for talking about this. And that's pretty scary. And I just want to say, like, it shouldn't be like that. And everybody has to bond together and not let that be acceptable. Like, you know. So thank you. Thank you so much,
My
Christopher.
pleasure. Anytime.
Let me just let me just get your channel down there one more time. Then everybody check that out. And don't forget to like, share, comment on this video, get your ideas out there, ask all the questions that you want. I'm here for it. Promote this if you can. I think it's an important conversation to have, and hope to hear from you all. Thanks again, Christopher. I think I'm going to play your song on the way out. Let them know you're just more than a pretty face and great intellectual voice out here. Let's see. Okay, everybody, have a good night. We'll talk soon.
Peace.